Hello, I'm Amelie and I'm in Year 7, and for my International Women's Day presentation, I'm going to be talking about why younger generations should use their voice to change the world. As young people, we are restricted in what we are permitted to do. Are you tall enough to ride the big one at the pleasure beach? Can you buy a plane ticket and travel on your own to places you're keen to visit? Are you able to watch the new horror film at the cinema? Sadly, if you're a young person, the answer is no. We are constantly restricted in what we are allowed to do independently because of things such as our height and age, and this sometimes pushes us to forget we have a voice. Despite these setbacks, we can, and we should, still speak up for what we think is right. For example, ideally, I would like to travel to London to demonstrate with the crowds who are meeting there and discussing the crisis in Ukraine. However, I would need to be accompanied by an adult in order to do so. But this should not stop me from having a say. What I can do instead of use my voice to speak up and raise awareness about this issue, and in doing so, bring about my change by influencing others. When young people rise together, amazing things can happen. In 2018, data showed that 21.3% of overall population of England and Wales were aged 18 and under. This may seem like a small figure, but it actually works out as 1/5 of the UK's population. According to the former President of the USA, Barack Obama, the future belongs to young people with an education and the imagination to create. Children and young people are the future of our society, and it is important that we strengthen their voices and ensure they are heard. When this works well, incredible changes can be made with young people directly influencing the world they live in. For example, a group of American high school students went on strike after finding out one of their female classmates was told that they were not able to partake in the boys' soccer tournament. After seeing the uproar caused by students and seeing how much this meant to them, changes were made by the school, and they allowed female students to partake in the match. I think it's important to take a moment to look back on our young girls from history who have made an impact despite the challenges they faced. From Malala Yousafzai to Anne Frank, world history is full of young girls who contribute massively to the biggest events in human civilization, while still not being quite 18 yet. But as world history has shown us, it's rare that girls and women get to credit their due for the work they've done. Here are a few examples. This image of Charlotte Gula, who was then 12 years old, appeared on the cover of National Geographic in 1985 and drew a huge amount of attention to the Soviet invasion that had driven Gula and thousands of others to free Afghanistan. Gula herself now lives near Tora Bora in Afghanistan with her family and children. Barbara Johns was one of the great youth activists of civil rights movement. At the age of 16 in 1951, she made a speech at her high school in New York that would lead to a mass walkout by students in protest against the institutionalized racism of the school system. Her family faced threats, but Johns persisted. She and other activists would go on to sue the school, a lawsuit that would become a part of Brown versus Board of Education case that led to the end of educational segregation in the United States. It is young girls like these that can inspire us to use our voice to make significant change in regard to breaking bias. But many young girls from the past and present have been denied an education. For example, my great-grandmother was born in 1937. She left school aged 14 to work in a factory. Higher education was not an option for her. I can't help but wonder if education was an equal right to all. How many more girls would have had the resources and knowledge behind them to speak up and create a change? Today in our country, we have undoubtedly progressed with regards to bias within the school environment, but we still have a long way to go. Although in the UK, it seems as though young girls are given the same schooling opportunities, it's not quite the same worldwide. Even before the pandemic, girls were more likely than boys to never set foot in a classroom. Conflict, poverty, and other forms of social disadvantages also create gender inequality in education. Girls living in countries affected by conflict, for example, are 2.5 times more likely to be out of school than boys. Some 9.5 million children were at risk of being forced out of school by the end of 2020, with girls facing an increased risk. It is our duty as young feminists to educate ourselves on current issues girls are facing and further raise awareness so that hopefully one day we can strive towards a completely gender equal world. Not only in this case of access to education and not only focusing on gender issues. Hopefully, for hearing about these inspiring individuals makes you realise how important it is young people use their voice to influence the world around them. But how can we actually do this? In school, there are many ways that young people can become more politically active and engaged. In terms of gender bias, we can make an impact through the conversations within school community. Perhaps next year we will see more school pupils join the International Women's Day 2022 Student Planning Committee. With this year's International Women's Day 2022 theme being Breaking the Bias, I plan to support this by encouraging my fellow Year 7s to speak up and use their voice.